Welcome to Mach 10 Sports. Glad you could join us in this segment. It's championship week. That means it's the conclusion of the regular season for everyone not named LSU and Georgia in the SEC. It's that time of year where teams are managing their roster, having exit meetings with their current players, finding out who is entering the portal from your current roster, monitoring the portal to see who's entering from opposing schools, along with finding out next week where their ultimate destination will be from a bowl standpoint if they got 6 wins. But most importantly, they are all about to receive their end of the year grade plus minus system from yours truly, Mach 10 Sports. We're going to start in the SEC West, go in order of finish, go to the SEC East from there, go from an order of finish. We're going to go grade plus minus system from the entire year through 12 games. I know LSU and Georgia both have another game, but I will kind of talk about adding that in if LSU were to win or if Georgia were to win. Some things probably wouldn't change. Let's get right to it. The SEC West. The SEC West winner LSU, who finished 9-3, could move to an A, in my opinion, with a win this weekend against Georgia. Currently, I think they sit at a B plus. Some say, Dave, why not an A? Well, there's a decent shot LSU ends up with 4 losses if they lose to Georgia, which I think myself and most will say going into this week. How the season ended, I can't give it an A. If they would have beat A&M to end the year, finished 10-2, I would have given it an A. They lost A&M. Just felt like they left a lot of meat on the bone. You'll hear me say that a lot in this segment. Felt like they left a lot on the table. Losing to the worst team in the division the last weekend wiped your entire chance of your playoff chances are off the table. They're completely gone. Unless some things shake out, which I don't anticipate, but you lost a chance to go to the playoff. A little disappointing. Great overall first year for Brian Kelly. If you would have told people he would have won the SEC West in the first year, people are taking that fantastic job for Brian Kelly. But I think the loss last week pushes it down to a B plus instead of an A. Still, great first year. A lot of people didn't think he could win there. I was all about the Brian Kelly train. I thought he would do a really good job at LSU. He has so far. Great fit from an organization standpoint. I think he's only going to keep this rolling. Great first year, 9-3 regular season, B plus grade in Brian Kelly's first year at LSU. Moving to Alabama, the Tide finished 10-2. In my opinion, I'm going to give them a C, just a hard C. The expectation, as we all know at Alabama, is a national championship every year. This year was no different. It got a lot of hype. It was going to be people calling it murder ball. Alabama's going to kick everybody's butt around the entire country. I picked Alabama to win the national championship just like most. But I think you're going to have to call this season it's a C. There's no other way you can say it. Some people may think I'm being a little too nice, and some people may be thinking I'm a little too harsh because it is a 10-2 season. So let me explain this. I think as we fast forward, we will appreciate this season in a whole holistic 35,000-foot view that this is another 10-win season for Alabama, who has just won 10 games for 15 straight years in a row. I think we're going to look at it big picture. Look at this team's losses. They lost 2 games on last-second plays, walk-offs. They easily could have lost 2 or 3 more games, but you could also make the argument they could easily be undefeated as well. This team has its holes, don't get me wrong, but I think if you ask the other 3 teams in the playoffs, and there's a way Alabama can get in. There is a way. If you don't believe so, just think if TCU or USC both lose this week. Tomorrow will be big, depending where the Tide's ranked. Are they 5th or 6th behind Ohio State? And throw in Tennessee in there as well. But this team has holes, but I think if you polled the other teams, specifically Georgia, if Georgia's the 1 seed, hypothetically, I don't think they want to see Alabama as the 4 seed. But this season as a whole, they didn't finish. They were outspoken about the anxiety. It seemed like the pressure got to them. The standard at Alabama is championships. 2 losses usually does not equate to a championship. This team didn't win a division. Therefore, it is a C. Very average year, but I'm still going to give you the nod that it's not a D plus because you won 10 games. But from an Alabama standpoint, this year was a very average to below average, especially when you count in this team was supposed to be an all-timer. Therefore, I think the Tide ends up as a C. Moving to Mississippi State, the Bulldogs finished 8-4. That is a B in my book. This team at times seemed like a 9-win team. They might have also been a 9-win team if they didn't have Georgia as one of their East draws. They got one of the tougher East draws playing Georgia and Kentucky. 2 out of their 4 losses between Alabama and Georgia, Kentucky, and who was the other one from Mississippi State? Uh, LSU. I mean, think about it. 2 out of their 4 losses were to Alabama and Georgia. Tough schedule this year for the Dogs, but there were also times I said they looked like a 9-win team at times. They looked like a 6 to 7 win team in games against Kentucky in the second half of Auburn. But even if things kind of even itself out, I think winning the Egg Bowl pushes up to a B. If they were to drop the Egg Bowl for the third straight year, Leach starting off 0-3, which is I stated last week's not good for a Mississippi State head coach's track record historically. I think them winning the Egg Bowl, getting to 8-4, makes this a B. If they were to lose, it probably would have been a C, C minus. But again, solid season for the Bulldogs. They drew probably anyone else out of the East besides Georgia or Tennessee. They're probably a 9-win team, and if they didn't drop the ball a little bit against Kentucky, they probably are a 9-win team as well. Solid year for the Dogs, but I think it's just an easy, solid B. Moving to their cross-state rivals, the Ole Miss Rebels. The Rebels finished 8-4 after starting 7-0. Not to toot my own horn, but I called this one. Thought they would start off 7-0, lose 5 straight. They didn't lose 5 straight. They did lose 4 out of 5. You could see this from a distance coming. You really could. There were just so many unknowns, new players, lost some of your best players, a lot of new coaches, a new strength coach. The schedule got tougher as the season went on. What would the culture dynamic be when things started to hit? So when the team started to hit some adversity, these kids hadn't been together for a while. Does it become a little bit more of an individualistic like organization culture in that within that Ole Miss program per se? And it looked like it did. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not in there every day, but you're losing 4 out of your last 5. Your head coach is talked about for other jobs. Doesn't really shoot it down. Last 2 or 3 weeks, big distraction. Losing the Egg Bowl at the end. And I was like, who is Ole Miss's best win? Is it Kentucky or Troy? I probably lean Kentucky, but Troy's in the conference championship game for the Sun Belt. Who is Ole Miss's best win? Another solid season though for Lane Kiffin. Let's don't get it wrong. 8-4 after winning the program, after having a 10-win season for the first time in program's history in the regular season, is not a bad year. 8-4 after the rebuild like that, but it's almost like what could have been if there weren't a lot of distractions at the end of the year. And I just feel like the team never played a full game. It was either a half or they come out and play well in the second half, not the first half, or play well at the first half, have a lead, come and struggle, not score a point in the third quarter. All of that just never felt like they played a full, complete game, rather really in rhythm. Started off hot, struggled late. That's why this season for me gives the Rebels a B minus. But you still like the direction of the Ole Miss program. Kind of how things ended with how Lane ultimately stayed, decided not to go to Auburn. Just probably rubbed some Ole Miss people wrong. It's a little awkward right now. Yeah, not the way you want to finish the season if you're an Ole Miss Rebel. But again, solid season overall, 8-4, and I think a B minus grade. Moving to the Arkansas Razorbacks, finished 6-6. My opinion, C minus. It just felt like a season Arkansas probably should have won 9 games. The West is down. The West I thought was down some to an extent. I thought LSU was a solid, probably one of the least talented overall teams the SEC West has put out there for a while. And I know there's a lot of Alabama teams that have won the West, and even LSU too is a 19 team, but not a great SEC West representative. Alabama lost 2 games. I know Arkansas had a lot of injuries at key positions on defense and at the quarterback position with KJ Jefferson, but the losses to Liberty and Missouri are just unacceptable, if I'm being honest. They totally cleared out their trophy case this year. They lost the Battle of the Golden Boot to LSU. They lost the trophy to Missouri, the border game. Just what did they really win this year? They're 6-6. It's the end of year 3. They need to reset the go hit the reset button. I think there's going to be some changes at the coordinator position for Arkansas. I think there's going to be some. There's already been some off the field changes. Sam Pittman fired his strength coach after the game on Friday, so they're getting that in. Kind of just a reset. It's been 3 years. Unfortunately, in college football now, after about 3 years, things get stale. You got to go. Not reinvent the wheel so much, but find new angles, get a new edge. Hey, like, nice run. We've had a good run, but let's go change this up a little bit. Get something fresh. I think with kids these days, I think you need to keep it fresh. So let's see how Arkansas bounces back in the offseason. I think you'll see some changes on the coaching staff and support staff. But this year, just in general, below average of expectations, a C minus in my grade for the Razorbacks this year. Moving to the Auburn Tigers, 5-7 finish. Weird grade, but anytime Auburn finishes with a losing record, it's a failing grade this year. However, the end of the season, let's be honest, there was some optimism with Cadillac's 2-2 finish. It got the fans fired up. One of their favorite players, one of the legends of the program, one of the best running backs of all time in the program, really took on leadership. Him and his staff put their best foot forward. I thought it had solid game plans in their last 4 games and fought hard. Didn't let the team quit. But as you saw, Auburn is hiring Hugh Freeze. I think it's a fantastic hire. I think it's a great fit. So I think Auburn in the future, new era college football is going to be okay. But this year specifically, total failure. I think a lot of people accepted it. Only positive was the way Cadillac Williams somewhat righted the ship towards the end of the year. I think he's going to be retained on that staff. Actually, I know he's going to be retained. So good story for Cadillac, good feel-good story. But I think they did a great job hiring Hugh Freeze. I think it's going to take them into the new era of college football, give them success with recruiting, this new name, image, likeness time in this sport. I like the Hugh Freeze era coming up for Auburn. But again, this year, just for 2022 by itself, a total failure of a year for the Auburn football program. And moving on to Texas A&M, who finished last in the West at 5-7. One of the more disappointing seasons when you factor in the expectations that I can remember. I know no one wants to hear this, but this team in Jimbo's 5th year was young and it had a bunch of injuries. But with that being said, there's too much talent to finish with an overall losing record. This team shouldn't have lost more than 4 games. They lost 7. I don't care how young they are. We're not talking about, hey, they didn't win 9 or 10 games. They didn't win the SEC. We're talking, they didn't even go to a bowl game. It could have been worse when you factor in the Arkansas game. If Arkansas doesn't miss that kick, A&M wins one conference game against LSU. The whole season just felt very weak and defensive. I mean, you go back and watch Jimbo's press conferences, everything just seemed like, hey, the plays were there, there's no execution. Hey, the plays were there, there's no execution. Hey, I don't know if you guys, just everything was a little demeaning, defensive, just very weak. This was one of the worst overall performances I've seen from a team slash program in probably the last 15, 20 years, going back to maybe 2000 Alabama, who was preseason top 3, opened the season in the Rose Bowl against UCLA. They only won 3 games that year after winning the SEC in '99. It just seemed like a team that was preseason top 10 that ultimately just fell on their face. Just a lot of stuff going on. To finish 5-7 is a very unacceptable record after the recruiting that A&M has done. I don't care how young, inexperienced you are. The depth's supposed to be there in year 5. This is an F. This was a failure of a season for Texas A&M. There's no other way to put it. Moving to the SEC East, Georgia, 12-0. Got to give them an A+. Georgia's made it through another regular season undefeated. I understand the schedule isn't overly challenging, but they have better wins than some think. Oregon, Tennessee, at Mississippi State on the road. Georgia has looked like the best team in the country in their biggest games. Look at the opening win against Oregon. Look against Tennessee. I currently think this is the most complete team in the country. Again, I've stated I don't think there is a great team in the country this year, but I do think Georgia is the best team week in, week out, and when they play in big games and you have their full attention, they've proven they play their best in those games. I trust Stetson Bennett. I trust Kirby. I trust the defensive staff. I think Georgia is the best team in the country right now. I would put them against anybody. Now they have holes, just like others. Don't get me wrong. I think they can be beat, but I would take them against anyone right now. I mean, honestly, this is a little off topic, but I think Georgia's about to go on some crazy regular season winning streak. They didn't lose a regular season game last year. They didn't this year. Go look at their 23 schedule. The Oklahoma game got canceled. Go look at their 23 schedule. They should go 12-0. The real tough test would be at Tennessee late in the year. But they may go 3 straight years without losing a regular season game. That is very impressive. I think Kirby Smart, after Brian Kelly and LSU dropping the ball in College Station this past weekend, is your 2022 SEC Coach of the Year. Moving to Tennessee, Vols went 10-2. That's an A- grade in my opinion. A-. I hate to put a minus on a 10-2 regular season, but the South Carolina game 2 weeks ago was bad. It's going to put a minus for me. I was going back and forth, B+, A-, pushed it up to an A-. Everything was still on the table going into that game, though. Tennessee probably had the easiest route to the playoffs. They just would have won again at South Carolina and at Vandy, 11-1. Their feet are up. They're eating potato chips on the couch at championship weekend, just waiting to see what seed they are. But they would have been in the playoffs, but no, they dropped that game at South Carolina. Got blown out. Poor performance. Lost their best player, Hendon Hooker, for the season. Overall, though, they did some great things. The offense improved even from last year. Ending the losing streak to Florida and Alabama was huge. Got to give them credit for that. They contended for the East the entire year. Great overall second year for Josh Heupel, but I just feel like they left a little meat on the bone. There I go, saying that again. They left a little meat on the bone left some stuff on the table. But again, one of the best seasons Tennessee's had, the best season they've had in the last 15 years. It's deserving of an A plus. Or sorry, A minus with the 10-2 record for the Tennessee Vols. South Carolina Gamecocks finished the season 8-4. I think it's a B plus. 3 weeks ago, I would have told you it was close to being a D grade for the Gamecocks. These last 2 weeks, though, with wins against Tennessee and at South Carolina, or sorry, at Clemson, them ending the streak against Clemson totally changed this. It's a B plus for sure. The offense struggled majority of the season, but not the last 2 weeks. Spencer Rattler had a bad pick against Clemson, but he's looked a lot better. Marcus Satterfield just left to go with his buddy Matt Rhule. He's the OC now at Nebraska. But to be fair to him, the offense was coming on these last 2 weeks. This season for the Gamecocks should be a springboard for them to be a potential transfer destination for some of these guys in the portal. They've proven they're going to facilitate, showcase some of these transfer portal guys. The way the Gamecocks have finished 8-4, strongest finishing Gamecock program in a very long time, beating 2 top 10 teams, top 7 teams, Tennessee and South Carolina back-to-back weeks. Big time wins for them. B plus, 8-4 overall. I was high on the Gamecocks coming in. Got a little iffy with them middle of the season. I'll be honest with you. I was losing some hope. Last 2 weeks proved me wrong. 8-4 finish, B plus overall for Shane Beamer and his Gamecock program in his second year. Moving to Kentucky, the Wildcats finished 7-5. It's a C grade to me. Winning the Louisville game made this a C performance, in my opinion. It could have dropped down to a D with the loss to rival Louisville. There were some ups and downs, but this was a team that got worse as the season went on, in my opinion. It's like they never recovered from that last series against Ole Miss, where if the guy lines up for half a second, they catch the pass. It was a legal formation. He was never set. That may have changed the trajectory of their program. I know they had some injuries up front. Will Levis was never 100% healthy. But they had a solid win. It wasn't all bad. They had a solid win against Mississippi State. But after that, what do they have to hang their hat on? There were some injuries. Like I said, the offensive line never developed like they thought. Lost 3 starters, new offensive line coach. We thought it would be a weakness going into the season. I didn't think it would be this bad, I'll be honest with you. But it definitely is what hindered some of their offensive production this year. Overall, you're going to have some 7-5 seasons at Kentucky. You can't consistently just win 9-10 games there. The East is improving, so it's going to make it tougher. But again, average year for what the expectations were. 7-5, not bad. Trajectory of this program and Mark Soup still very high. But this year, average season, and that's why I gave it a C. Moving to the Florida Gators, who finished 6-6, lost to their rival Florida State on Friday night. I give this season a C grade for the Gators. Just a season of inconsistencies. Started off with a great win versus Utah week 1. Everybody was all high on them, myself included. I was like, dang, beating Utah first week, that's a big time win. But after that, just a bunch of inconsistent football. Anthony Richardson was never the reliable threat they could count on at the quarterback position. He never reached his full potential this year. They really looked like they never could really get into an offensive identity with their comfortability with Anthony Richardson, him feeling that they were putting him in the best spot to showcase his talents and help the teams. It looked like a different scheme offensively for the Gators week in, week out. The defense played well in some games, but also they had some of their own warts. They had some poor showings themselves, especially in the run game. This team really had no strength overall. What was the strength of this team besides probably the running backs? Besides Johnson, Montrell Johnson, and Trevor Etienne, I would probably say what is the strengths after that? I mean, the upside of Anthony Richardson, but you add all that together, there's no strengths on a team, a lot of inconsistencies. It screams 6-6 season. Need to fill some holes this offseason, continue to put an emphasis on the state of Florida like they have been in recruiting. Next year will be big, unfortunately. College football sped up now. People want instant results. Next year, I think Billy needs to go get 8 wins. His job's not on the line. Not saying that at all, but 8 wins will be big from a recruiting standpoint for them to go have success in the portal, fill holes, and go have success with the high school kids as well. 6-6, average first year. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. First year at Florida. I think Billy Napier is going to be okay. He has the resources. He has the blueprint, but not as good as a season as they wanted to have. That's why I give it a C. The Missouri Tigers finished 6-6. To me, that is a B season for the Missouri Tiger program. Talk about a team that never went away all year. They kept fighting. They had 3 weeks in a row between the Auburn game, Georgia game, and Florida game that they could have won all 3, and they were in it in the fourth quarter. To get to 6 wins after overcoming that adversity was very impressive by Eli Drinkowitz and his staff. He gets a bad rap. I've given him a bad rap before. Comes off a little cheesy at times. He is what he is. But I want to give him and his staff credit, him and especially Blake Baker over there on the defensive side of the ball for him. They kept this team together. They kept fighting. They finally got to 6 wins, knocked off a big rival, Arkansas, to get to 6 wins. Luther Burden announced he's coming back. Huge get. I mean, now you're trying to maintain your roster in the offseason. He announced he's coming back. If he would have left, it's almost like you never had him. It never felt like you kept the top player in state in the 2022 class at Missouri, but he decides to stay at Missouri. He's all Tiger right now. That's huge for the perception of the rest of the kids in a decently talented state like Missouri and Kansas City and St. Louis. That shows that there's some progress going with the Missouri football program. So I think that's going to help them get some other kids. That's big. This has been a big week for Missouri, getting to bowl eligible, keeping your best player, your best signing in the 2022 class. It could have went anywhere. Great finish for the Missouri Tiger program, and that's why I give this season a B. And then finally, Vanderbilt Commodores, who finished 5-7 this year. B plus for me. I know it's a losing record, but hear me out. B plus. Clark Lee and this team ended the 2-year SEC losing streak. They ended it by getting back-to-back wins at Kentucky and Florida at home. There was improvement all year. You could see it. Not any quit from this team. They kept getting better. Always had a good game plan. Go look at the Ole Miss game. They were up at half. If I'm right, they were up at half. They folded kind of in the second half, but Ole Miss has better players. But their game plan week in, week out was fine. I know they got beat pretty bad by Tennessee and Joe Milton in this past week. But again, Tennessee has better players. From a holistic big picture, this was a great year. My goal for Vanderbilt going into the season was to get 4 wins and end the SEC losing streak. They did that. They won one more game than I anticipated and won one more conference game than I anticipated. Got 2 conference wins back to back, one on the road, one at home. Got the 5th win. It's always going to be tough to win 6 games at Vandy. But I think if he could do that next year, he is heading in a great trajectory. Still is right now at his alma mater at Vanderbilt. The goal for me this year for them was to get that SEC losing streak monkey off their back, finish the year strong. They did that. Go get some kids in the transfer portal to plug some holes. Keep the kids that you want on the roster because you know they're going to go be poached. But again, Vanderbilt finishes strong in recruiting. They're showing trajectory. Clark Lee's a smart guy. It's his alma mater. There's a lot of pride there. I like what Vanderbilt's doing. I really do. That's why I give them the B+ grade, even with the 5-7 record. I think they overachieved this year. With that being said, those are my letter grades plus minus for the SEC for this SEC season, the 2022 football season. It's been a heck of a year. I've enjoyed it. I know we got one more this week. We got LSU Georgia SEC championship game. Maybe a little adjustment of letter grades right there, but I think going into bowl season, this is where every team stands. I think this is how they finished for the 2022 football season. I appreciate you joining us on this segment. Have a great night. Keep following us on Mach 10 Sports for the best information on SEC sports.